What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you my New Year's Six Bowl projections heading into Week 9 of the 2023 college football season. We are now officially heading into the last weekend of the month of October before we head into the month of November, and we got our first playoff rankings coming out, which starts next week. And this is where the New Year's Six Bowl games kind of get hard to predict and also to project for the rest of the year because a lot of chaos happens pretty much in the month of November. But we're going to give you my New Year's Six Bowl projections here. Yesterday I gave you my playoff projections for Week 9. You can go back and watch that video. And like I said, I made one change yesterday to my playoff projections. And we've made a ton of changes here to my New Year's Six Bowl projections because there's just been so much chaos now in the month of October and everything. And again, the New Year's Six Bowls are really hard to predict and hard to project this year. Of course, with different kind of, bowl terms and everything. 4 of the games are pretty much at large and everything. But, in the Orange Bowl, you have to have an ACC versus like a Big Ten or SEC team. So, again, that's how the New Year's Six Bowls work. And plus, the 2 New Year's Six Bowl games are playoff games. So, we'll give you my playoff games from yesterday as well. So, let's get right into my Week 9 New Year's Six Bowl projections for the 2023 college football season, and we'll start here with the playoff semifinal games from yesterday. And in the Rose Bowl, I still have Michigan and Florida State. I think this is likely what we're going to see here at the end of the year. I mean, Michigan obviously going to be probably that highest ranked Big Ten team. Depends on what happened when they play against Penn State and Ohio State. I mean, if they do lose to Penn State, that would probably, knock them out of here, the playoff and everything, just because they won't have like a resume. Their only resume win would come like against Ohio State. So, I mean, I think Ohio State has a better resume than Michigan and Penn State both. Penn State doesn't have a top 25 win this year. Ohio State's got a couple this year, so that's been the difference there between Michigan and Ohio State. Michigan, though, I've been, very, impressed by this team in the last 4 weeks, especially on the offensive side of the football. That offense is now rolling. They got the running game going. The defense looks really strong as well. Florida State, I think this is the team that's going to go to the ACC championship. I mean, I think they're going to go undefeated. I think more than likely they can probably lose that game to the ACC championship, but I think it's more than likely that Florida State will get into the playoff because they have a good resume. I think they have a better resume than Michigan. They have 2 top 25 wins, got that win over LSU early in the year, and they also got that win over Duke this past weekend. That was kind of like a trap game for Florida State, but they were able to take care of business in the second half. Of course, Duke lost their starting quarterback and everything. So this is my Rose Bowl game. Again, this is kind of like the, I think it's probably, since week number 2 that I've had this matchup play out. So Michigan and Florida State. This was my number 2 versus number 3 matchup. And then my number 1 versus number 4 matchup is in the Sugar Bowl. It's Ohio State and Georgia, rematch from last year in the playoff semifinal. And I put Ohio State here this week because they have a good resume. They have like 2 top 25 wins, Notre Dame, and then, of course, Penn State from last weekend. And that was kind of enough for me to put them here in the playoff projections from yesterday. I know Georgia doesn't have a top 25 win, but they do have some opportunities to get a really good resume out of those top 25 wins. They got Florida coming up, which really isn't a top 25 game, but they do have Tennessee coming up. If Tennessee stays ranked and everything, that would be a top 25 win for them. And then, of course, they have, still Missouri to play, and then they also obviously got Ole Miss. So if those 2 teams, stay ranked, Georgia, Tennessee, or I should say 3 teams, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and then Missouri. If those 3 teams stay ranked in the rest of the year, Georgia will have a really good resume. And then, of course, their 4th top 25 win would likely come in the SEC championship. So Ohio State, though, they have a great resume. That was kind of enough for me to put them here in my playoff semifinal games. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but just because based off of their resume, they definitely deserve to be here in the playoff projections from yesterday. So again, this was my number 1 versus number 4 matchup in the playoff semifinal games from yesterday. Let's now go to the regular New Year's Six Bowl games now for the 2023 college football season. We'll start here with the Cotton Bowl. I made a change here. I got Oklahoma and Oregon here. I got Oklahoma as the highest Big 12 team right now. I think even if Oklahoma goes undefeated, I don't think they're likely going to get into the playoff just because they don't have enough, top 25 wins more than Ohio State. Yes, they have the win over Texas, but, that was that was just one top 10 win. Ohio State has the more top 25 wins than Oklahoma. That was kind of enough for me to put the Buckeyes ahead of Oklahoma. I did have Oklahoma last weekend in my playoff projections just because of that resume, but after Ohio State got a top 10 win, I have to put them ahead of Oklahoma and everything. And I think when any of the playoff rankings come out next week, I think Ohio State is going to be ahead of Oklahoma. I think Ohio State probably will be number 1. I think Oklahoma will probably be like number 3 or something. Just depends on the other resumes from the other team. But again, Oklahoma here, I got them in the Cotton Bowl this week, and then I got Oregon here as the second best Pac-12 team. Oregon did lose to Washington a couple weeks ago, but I think this is the second best team right now. They'll have a tough challenge against Utah tomorrow, and if Utah wins that game, I'll put Utah here in the Cotton Bowl for next week. But again, this is a matchup that I think a lot of people would love to see, the Big 12 versus the Pac-12. Between Oklahoma and Oregon, 2 great offensive teams, and then definitely 2 great defensive teams as well. So this is who I got in the Cotton Bowl, Oklahoma and Oregon. Let's now go into the Fiesta Bowl. The Fiesta Bowl stays the same. I still got Washington here, and then Air Force here as well. Washington, I still got them as the top-ranked team in the Pac-12. I mean, if Washington has like a top 25 win over Oregon, I don't think that would be enough of a resume, to get into the college football playoff, because I think, Oklahoma's win over Texas is a lot better than Washington's win over Oregon. I just don't think that would be enough to get them in. But even though they go undefeated, which I don't think they're going to go undefeated for the rest of the year, I do see Washington at least losing like 1 or 2 games perhaps as of right now, just based off of what we've seen so far. The Pac-12 has been very competitive as well. I mean, obviously it's, a conference that's beaten up all over each other, like all the teams have been beating up on each other and everything. And Washington wasn't that very impressive against Arizona State, and that kind of really shocked me that Washington didn't win big in that game. Arizona State is a terrible team, and we saw a lot of chaos, from this past weekend. Some top 10 teams really struggled against like some really terrible teams and everything like that. Washington, though, I still got them as the highest-ranked Pac-12 team. I mean, more than likely they're going to probably go to the Pac-12 championship, perhaps, unless something happens, once we get into the month of November and everything. Then Air Force here, it was kind of hard to pick, between Air Force, James Madison, and Liberty. I mean, when you look at Air Force, Liberty, and James Madison, all these teams are pretty similar. They're undefeated. They don't have any resumes, though, to put them in a New Year's Six Bowl. But again, Air Force is the only non-Power 5 team that I can put in here. I know Tulane is still out there, but Air Force hasn't not lost a game yet. So I've been very impressed with this Air Force team. I did actually rank them in my top 25 this past weekend, and then this time I got Liberty and James Madison in there. Both of those teams are undefeated. I mean, it'll be hard to tell which what the committee is going to do with all 3 of those teams. James Madison, I don't know if they're even ranked in real life, but Liberty is not even ranked. So I think that's really a question mark. I mean, for the AP poll and everything, but I think when the playoff rankings are going to come out, I think Air Force is not going to be undefeated. I think also Liberty won't be undefeated either. And same thing with James Madison, because they just don't really play anybody in their conferences. So this is who I have in my Fiesta Bowl matchup, though. I mean, like I said, I've been very impressed with Air Force. But again, Washington, very sluggish this past weekend against Arizona State. But again, I think this team will probably likely lose 2 games, perhaps, maybe by the end of the year, because a lot of chaos can happen in the month of November. But again, we're heading into the last weekend of October, so we'll see what they do this weekend. But again, this is who I had in my Fiesta Bowl matchup. Moving on to the Peach Bowl, I made a change here. I got Texas and Penn State. Texas, I got them as the second best team in the Big 12. I mean, they have a win over Alabama, so that's the reason why they still end up here in the New Year's Six Bowl projections. And again, Quinn Ewers likely out for a little while for this Texas team. He probably won't be available for tomorrow's game against BYU. So that's obviously a big concern going into the rest of the year for this Texas team. But once they get him back, I mean, I think Texas more than likely can get him back for the Big 12 championship. But again, when you look at the Big 12 standings, it's definitely wide open. I mean, if Oklahoma loses this weekend, the Big 12 is definitely wide open. But as of right now, it's controlled by Texas and Oklahoma, so that's the reason why they're here in the New Year's Six Bowl projections. Penn State, I know they lost to, I know they lost to Ohio State this past weekend, but I think this was still a very, good Penn State team. I think they can probably win out. They have a really good chance to maybe upset Michigan perhaps at home. I mean, like I said, they do get that game at home, and that's likely a game that they can probably pull off a huge upset in that one and end up finishing second in the Big Ten East and everything. Even though likely, obviously they're the third best team right now in the Big Ten East, it's more than likely that they're still going to end up in a New Year's Six bowl game, even though they don't have like a really good resume. If they don't get like a good win over Michigan, I think that likely puts them out of a New Year's Six bowl and everything. But we'll find out what Penn State does for the rest of the year. But like I said, they struggled in the game against Ohio State on third downs. The defense for Ohio State made some huge stops. So this is who I have in my Peach Bowl. This is a matchup I would love to see here. Obviously, both of these teams are kind of even on the defensive side of the football. So this is who I had in my Peach Bowl matchup. Let's now go to my last New Year's Six bowl game, and that's going to be the Orange Bowl. I got Alabama and Louisville. Alabama, the second best team right now in the SEC. I think that it's more than likely that Alabama, as of right now, is heading to the SEC championship. They got a bye week coming up, this weekend. They'll play LSU in about a couple more weeks. I think that game pretty much decides the SEC West. I mean, a lot of people are saying it decides the SEC West. I mean, Alabama's already beaten Ole Miss. I mean, LSU needs to beat Alabama to probably get to the SEC championship, and then they probably need Ole Miss to lose to, maybe one more game perhaps, because Ole Miss would move on because they had the head-to-head matchup win. But Alabama here, I've been very impressed with them, in the last few weeks. I mean, Alabama came out in that second half against Tennessee really fired up, and that really, made Alabama pull away from there. Louisville here, they have a really good resume to get to a New Year's Six bowl here in the Orange Bowl. When you look at their resume, they have a top 25 win, of course, over Notre Dame. That would kind of be enough for them to get into the Orange Bowl here. And plus, the reason why they're in the Orange Bowl here this week is because North Carolina got beat by Virginia. So that's how they ended up here in this New Year's Six bowl projection. But again, you have to have an ACC team in here. So we pick Louisville here as the second best team behind Florida State. I think right now it's looking like Florida State versus Louisville in the ACC championship, even though the Cardinals did lose to Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. But I think more than likely that Louisville's going to get in here regardless, because being that second best ACC team and all. So Alabama versus Louisville, would be a rematch from the 2018 season opener kickoff game. Alabama dominated that game. That was when Louisville kind of started to fall apart. But again, Alabama, I think it's more than likely as of right now we're getting Alabama versus Georgia in the SEC title game. But again, they'll have LSU in a couple weeks, and then, of course, Louisville right now. And Florida State's looking like the ACC championship. So again, that is my Orange Bowl projection here. It's Alabama versus Louisville. And those are overall my New Year's Six bowl projections heading into Week 9 of the 2023 season. Let me guys know what you think about these New Year's Six bowl games, and also give me your New Year's Six bowl games down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.